Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Traversing the Stars podcast. Today's special guest is Kari Byron. You know her from Mythbusters, Crash Test World, and her book, Crash Test Girl. She's now the co-founder of EXPLR Media. Now join me as we go Traversing the Stars. Hello, Ms. Byron. Thank you so much for coming back to the podcast.
Of course. It's nice to see you again.
And
hear you. Other way.
And you as well. It was great fun talking to you the last time. I'm a big fan of yours. As we said before, going all the way back to Mythbusters and then currently with Crash Test World as well. You're fantastic.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say.
Thank you so much. So one thing I was wondering, as we had talked, the last time we spoke, we talked a lot about Crash Test World. And so I was wondering, what is the status of the show now that you're also working on Project Explorer and everything else? Is it still, are you making new episodes?
Well, actually, transitioned a little bit because obviously Crash Test World was a travel adventure show around the world.
Yes.
And since then, we had the launch and then a pandemic, which made things quite difficult for a travel adventure show.
Yes.
So, little hold on that. It's still airing, of course. We've transitioned it over to what I have, which is a new platform. Project Explorer was a nonprofit run by Jenny Bukos, and the way that it was run was so amazing with Crash Test World because we cut up our show into smaller segments, added lesson plans to them, and made it something you could use in a classroom or use as like family viewing at home. And this was kind of I don't know, maybe it was a premonition to the way the world was about to be with remote learning, that we are co-founding another platform called EXPLR, EXPLR, which is basically a subscription base, sort of like think a masterclass for teens and tweens, or like a Netflix for short format, like highly produced content. But there's two versions, one which is just family friendly viewing if you want your kids to watch something that you know is going to be inspirational or educational, because there's not a lot of entertainment that fills that teen and tween space that isn't kind of garbage. I gotta admit, I see the stuff my daughter looks at and I'm just like, oh my God, this is not going to make you a global change agent. I want more of those Gretas in the world and less Kylies. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I definitely know what you're saying.
The second version of the platform is a classroom base, and it comes with lesson plans that are written by World Savvy. So everything is standard aligned. It's all the global goals that you'd want for global learning. And the videos are beautiful. They are inspiring. So that's our plan, is we want to create smarter entertainment for that particular age group.
See, I think one thing that's fantastic about you is that you really have become one of the faces of science. You know, I mean, like I said, with all the shows you're doing, and prefer like the Crash Test World, and before that you had Mythbusters, and right now you're doing Explorer. Why is that so important to you to become that you're into science and education? You're such an important role model for especially women and for young people. Why is that also important to you?
Well, I'm not a scientist. I grew up with art. What I admire about science is it's a really great way of finding critical thinking. It's all set up with the scientific method is a beautiful storytelling, critical thinking vehicle. And I think it can be applied to any discipline. I feel like if you add critical thinking to English, to poetry, to math, anything that you add it to, it's going to make things better and you're going to come to better conclusions. So I don't consider myself necessarily a STEM advocate as much as a curiosity advocate. I'm a curiosity communicator. I really want to constantly be learning, and I don't know, I like it when people come along for the ride. So that's why Mythbusters was successful. It was exciting to me in real life, and I was learning along the way, and you got to learn with me.
See, and during my day job, I'm a high school teacher. I teach English. So one thing, once again, I really appreciate your dedication to education. And I like what you said as well, which is how the interdisciplinary aspect of science and critical thinking, that it really does help in every facet of a young person's life. And I think, I feel like sometimes education walks away from really pushing the analytical aspect of that. And I think in the critical thinking aspect, and I think that's a great aspect of what your show and your Explorer is doing for kids and for teens. Now on the website, it has age groups. I think it's from 8 to 14 as an
Mhm.
age group. Are you guys going to go to, because I teach upper high school, are you going to go start have content for 14 to 18 as well?
Oh yeah, there is. Like if you look at things like the Doha debates, it's, they're talking about much more sophisticated things, but we've kind of run the gamut with the content. Most of the stuff that we are creating now is, I would say, like 5th through 10th grade mostly, like right there. But of course, maturity and sophistication levels with kids runs the gamut. So we just want to make sure that there's something there that you can use. We even have sex ed and puberty education on there. It's just things that are hard to create discussion plans around. We want to like cut down on teacher prep time
Yeah.
and put everything in small, just quantified packages like kids' attention span. You know how they sit there and flip through TikTok
Yes.
very, very quickly, but every now and then they stop, and if it catches their attention right away, they'll absorb something amazing.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about your content for the Explorer Media, what how are you breaking down the ideas that you want to use for the show? 'Cause I know you've done episodes recently on recycling. What was a big one you've done recently? When how does that form from the idea stage of what you want to do for your show to deciding this is something we're now going to record for the platform?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of it comes down to finding the funding for different shows. For instance, our plastics show is, we could find funding around recycling because there's a lot of interest right there. And I wanted to do a science show, obviously, because I do adore STEM. So this is our everyday science show, and we have an incredible host. His name's Justin. You'll find him on Instagram as Mr. Fascinate, and he
Mr.
is a
Fascinating.
very cool. Yes, he's such a cool STEM influencer and such a great role model, and he's fun. So we put him as the host of the show to do the everyday science. We also procure different content that we find really valuable. Like we found Girl Rising, which is an Oscar-winning, beautiful movie that had a bunch of chapters to it on different girls and the impact of education on their lives. So we licensed that from them and then broke down the chapters so that each chapter is an episode and added a lesson plan to each. And each story is so inspiring to see girls getting through different adversities through finding education. And I mean, finding shows like that is easy, but I just have so much that I want. I see influencers and I'm like, ooh, you'd make a good show. We want to do the things that are needed. We want financial literacy, we want I want everything that you would teach in a school in little bite-sized pieces so that teachers can use it everywhere. I want this to be global.
So as someone like I said, as someone who's an English teacher, how can Explorer help me and my students in their classes?
Okay, you specifically as an English teacher, I would personally find a book about refugees that you were reading, watch the episode on the Syrian refugee camp in Berlin. All the discussion plan that comes with it helps you make real life connections between what's happening now, what's happening, in the real world, and who you are, and an empathetic connection. And as well, you can easily jump that into a book about refugees, or maybe go on to the Holocaust, or it's really easy to adopt. But one of the series that we're looking to do is going to be Shakespeare.
Oh, nice.
Shakespeare, cool.
I totally get it.
Shakespeare is cool, but we want it. There's a lot of really fun and cool actors that you wouldn't expect that are super into Shakespeare. So we want it read in a way that makes it feel modern and understandable by
Hmm.
maybe actors that you already know. So that's something that we're looking to do. So if you find any great television that you think would fit, let me know. I'll onboard it.
Well, that is also, and I will say, Shakespeare can be extremely dull if not done well. So the fact that you can give life to something like Shakespeare is extremely important, because I think a lot of kids nowadays, maybe just because of we live in such a digital world, because they do have so many other activities to think about, that I think as teachers and educators, I don't think we always think about that as part of education is partly now entertainment. You do need to keep their attention, which I think is harder than ever before because there is so many other more interesting things for them to be doing. And I think it's great that you're helping us as teachers give it life. Because I think a lot of times is that the subjects can feel dead to students. And I think it helps that you're giving them life through what you're doing.
I mean, we've always used storytelling to teach a lesson. I mean, all the way back to fables. So that's all we're doing is we're using storytelling to illuminate people who are the solution makers and the innovators in the world. Um, but we're also using it to tell stories of difficult concepts. We've got a show on math that's all storytelling. It's like how do you make algebra into a story? They can do it. It's called Sums of Anarchy.
That's awesome.
Sums, S-U-M-S. Yes.
Yes,
So
indeed.
we're trying really hard to compete with the brain space of all the things that they're into. That's why we keep it quick, and we try to keep our hosts and our content as young and exciting as we can.
So when you're thinking about what to do, are you thinking to yourself when you're creating your content, what would entertain junior high, elementary school Kari Byron, or or were you just a great student when you were a kid? You're just like, I know, I've been fun. Like, how do you know which content is going to work, and when you have something you think to yourself, this is what the kids are going to love? Like, are you thinking about you as a younger individual watching, or what you would have entertained you or taught you?
I would love to say yes, but no. I know what entertained me is so different than now, but I have a 12-year-old daughter and she is my beta testing audience. And if I start playing something and she starts looking away, then, maybe it needs some quicker cutting. I don't know, but better storytelling. I try to think through her eyes, which I've seen roll back into her head so many times that I feel like I've got enough of a feel of what's like, so low-key lame and what's actually cool to her. So I'm trying very hard to, utilize her. I should pay her.
That's a rough audience to have, especially your daughter.
I don't show her my show because I can't take that criticism from her. I'll show her friends, but the rest of the stuff will be like, okay, what do you think of this guy? Do you think he's cool? Should we bring him on? And she'll be like, yeah, okay, I like that. And then he's a very sophisticated 12-year-old. So I feel like if I can please her, I'm game.
So you put a producer credit for your daughter on it now. Approved by.
I mean, all that income's probably going straight into a college fund at some point. So she wins.
That's awesome. So when you're also in production, how do you balance entertainment with education? Because honestly, I think a lot of us, when we're doing as a teacher, you got to think to yourself, how much content is going to the actual learning part of it. How much is it to entertain? And when you're producing your show, is that something you're thinking about as well? How to balance the fun with the learning?
We're looking mostly for inspiration, and we're looking, okay, like anything that's beautiful, like the diversity of the skill sets that come into it to solve the problem actually really work in your favor. So of course, our production company that we mostly use is Intuitive Productions, which is owned by Andrew Zimmern from, you might know him from Bizarre Foods or What's
Yes, I
Eating
do.
America. Yeah, so it's his production company. So that's entertainment right there. That's a lot of global stuff right there. Jenny Bukos, who did Project Explorer for like 17 years, is very education focused, and both of us traveled around the globe. I'm obviously very entertainment focused. I always want to figure out how I can make it something more ironic or funny or punny or whatever.
Right.
So we bring all these things together, and we've just got amazing crews that everybody just believes so hard in this that I haven't been on a set yet where you didn't walk away, where everyone from the cameraman to the PA to the producers like, oh my God, I just feel so good about what we're doing. Like that's not a typical thing necessarily in television production. Somebody's always pissed off and like unsatisfied with something, but we all just feel really good about the content and the stories and what we're seeing and what we're putting out in the world, that it's really rewarding. It feels like Mythbusters did when it started to make an impact to me.
Yeah, and I think once again the timing is perfect because even I think COVID jump started the digital age in education. I mean, I think it was going to happen anyway, but COVID was kind of like, guys, this is happening right now. You can't wait 10 years. This is now. And you're and Explorer is actually, once again, is built for that new age of education. As someone who's now thinking of education regularly in creating your shows, do you think schools are as moving quickly enough to acclimate to the new digital world?
Well, it depends because, this is not a fair world. I mean, COVID also put a giant wedge in educational equity. Like, some kids have to redo the whole year because they didn't have that access. And I think
Mm,
what COVID really illuminated to us is that huge divide and where we really need to supplement. That's one of the reasons why on the platform we have captioning in 5 different languages. We have it for the sight impaired or low vision. We have we have shows that are SEL and social emotional learning, but we also made it so if a teacher, it's really accessible pricing, and if a teacher gets it from their district, the kids can download any show or any piece of homework that they need to bring home onto anything that they have, and do it from home without Wi-Fi at home. So if the school has Wi-Fi, then the kids don't necessarily have to. We're doing our best to bridge as much gap as we can.
mm.
It's very difficult to do because it's also, it's a huge problem, but it's something that we're constantly talking about.
I really do like that you also bring in social emotional learning because once again, as I said, I'm in high school, but the school that I'm at is actually a therapeutic high school, where we're for students with anxiety issues, emotional issues, behavioral issues. And I think that's just fascinating to hear you kind of incorporate that into your Explorer Media. And because I don't think that's something that's often credited with in education. That's something as important, that you can teach whatever you want, have all the information you want, but the students have to be able to handle, have to be emotionally able to handle it, and has to be thinking about emotional learning as well. So I think that's fantastic that you thought about that. I mean, that's incredible.
Well, I remember junior high, and it was a hard experience for me. Somewhere around the age of 12, I started getting really bad depression, really
Mm,
bad. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And I didn't know it wasn't normalized. And it really made me shrink inside myself a lot. And so we really want to address a lot of the aspects of bullying and those feelings of inadequacy and finding your own tribe that makes you feel better. Like, we want to address everything from your gender identification and acceptance as well, because I'm not going to go into a classroom and learn algebra or read a paper and understand what's going on if I'm really just feeling down on myself. So I think it's really, really important that we create just as much social and emotional learning as we do academic learning. I think they go hand in hand, like art and science.
that's awesome. Like I said, you sound like you guys really have thought about just about every aspect of education in this, like, within Explorer. I mean, like I said, you said emotional, actual education, entertainment, English, science, math, everything in between. Now, for the listeners who are not as knowledgeable of education, obviously you said 2 words that they may not understand, so I want to make sure we break it down for them.
Okay.
STEM, because obviously STEM is something that is definitely an educational word, but may not be a parent listening to my show knowing what we're talking about when we say STEM, or
Dude, I
STEAM.
feel like it's a buzzword. Everybody must have heard it by now. Right? It's science, technology, engineering, and math, which is this core that people are trying to, if you go into a STEM career, it's very, everybody's kind of pushing STEM right now. But I like to add the A and make it STEAM, because
Yes.
I think that art is really important there and also has been kind of pushed aside for some of the more basics.
And I agree with you. Once again, as an English teacher, I say STEAM. STEAM is the way to go, because arts are absolutely essential. And we'll get into it in just a moment. But actually, I noticed online that you actually do art yourself with black powder. That was fantastic. I saw that's something you actually do as well. So once again, so you're not only, like I said, science and math, but you're also an artist. So you do kind of run the gambit yourself in every way as well, like a Renaissance woman. You're doing a little bit of everything.
Jane of all trades.
Exactly.
Well, I've always been an artist ever since I was a little kid. That's how I worked through some of my social emotional learning. I used to delve into art to express myself, and I still do. That's still part of my calming space. I make sculptures, and I thought I was going to be an artist. I didn't know I was going to end up in this career. I went to be a toy prototyper with Jamie Heineman because I wanted to carve little toys, and it just kind of fell into Mythbusters, and all the opportunities that it afforded me were so brilliant. And when I realized that they were doing science the way that I did art, where you get your hands dirty and it's really
Yeah.
experiential and it's just a fostering of curiosity, that's when I fell in love with STEM, STEAM, all of it, and kind of ended up with Curiosity Communicator as my label.
I mean, I think it's ingenious. And also, I mean, as someone who is the co-founder of Explorer, you also have obviously a great knowledge, as you mentioned, of business. And I'm sure, and that knowledge as well, I assume, is also going into your classroom your lessons as well. Because I think once again, one thing I know about students that I have is that they don't understand the basics of finance. And I'm guessing that's something also that you're interested in as well, in helping them learn actual skills, not hypothetical skills, but ones they can actually use in real space.
Oh yeah, I mean, we haven't got the series started yet, but we have one in the cooker that's financial literacy, and it's with a really fun influencer that's from Instagram. Also, I want to do home ec, so that's another series that we've got in the cooker called Adulting. We really want it's going to be the little things that you wish your parents told you about, like that, and taught to you in a hopefully very hysterical way.
That is so cool. And so as this content keeps coming out, as let's say, so as a teacher, if I have the subscription to Explorer, okay,
Mhm.
um, is it set up as a progression of lessons from beginning of a school year towards an end? Is it, as a teacher, would I be picking parts of Explore Media, like a little bit from this area, a little bit from that area, or is it set up for a year-long process?
It's really just like a Netflix. Like you find something you like, and there's probably 6 episodes of it. And so maybe, once a week we'll add a new episode. And we have 18 years of content from Project Explorer, but we're constantly adding new stuff. So, for instance, I was talking with this geographer. She was a geography teacher, and she used Girl Rising to explore different countries and talk about different countries and help people identify and personalize them and give them a human face instead of just you're looking at a map. So I think that there's lots of ways to adopt the discussions that we have into every discipline.
I mean, that's so cool. And then you also have, as you mentioned, Justin Schaefer. Am I saying the last name right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I got it right. Wow, damn. I usually fail at that yeah, completely. So as you said, his name online is Mr. Fascinating. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's his Instagram handle.
That's
So
Instagram
that's what I
handle.
call him. I'm like, hey, Mr. Fascinate.
That's awesome. So who is he, and what does he bring to the Explorer Media content?
Well, he is a STEM influencer that just caught our attention because he's got a great voice and a great story, and the way that he communicates is it's really accessible, and he just speaks to that audience. And so he seemed like a really good fit for everyday science. And after working with him on 3 episodes for that series, I'm sold. I can see him speaking to the kids. I'm very excited for them to see his debut on our platform.
Well, especially with a name like Mr. Fascinating, he better be fascinating at that point.
I think the youngins will also find him not too difficult to look at. He's definitely adorable.
So the other thing I noticed that you're doing as well, you're also creating what's called the Argent Story series, where you're talking about individuals or heroes in their fields, right?
Mhm.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about the Argent Story series?
Oh, you did your homework. Yeah.
Yes.
So origin stories, we are looking for currently mostly like STEM jobs, but any job that's really interesting, jobs that kids don't necessarily know are out there, to help them figure out their futures. Because I don't know about you, but I graduated from high school. I'm like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what major to pick, because we had kind of a limited idea of all of the things you can do and how many ways you can adapt what you're passionate or interested in into different kinds of careers. So we're going around and finding people who have a great story and showing what their job is. I mean, they could be in, working on electric cars, an engineer, or, like
Yeah.
anything. And so we're kind of just showing their origin story, where they came from, how they came up, and what they ended up finding. And that way, you'll just have a bigger world for yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, or especially kids, because once again, kids with maybe have a limited amount of life experiences, I don't think they think to themselves that there's a person doing a job for everything they see. You know, like someone built that or did that or thought about that, and there's a job for all that stuff. I think they just kind of assume things just kind of are, you know. And
Yeah.
I think they're just like, yeah, there's a cell phone. That's cool. It's like, well, yeah, but someone built the cell phone, someone built the mechanics inside, and someone had to think about all this stuff. I don't know if they always think about that. I think the Argent series, story series, is a fantastic addition as well. Could get some thinking about, once again, what's out there. Like we've had some students. We sometimes we'll have guests. We've had someone from like Project Space Explorer X, what they call it, the one with Elon Musk, that SpaceX. When the engineers talked to them, and they thought there was. I don't think they realized that there's actually an engineer
Yeah.
who built some of that stuff. I don't think they thought about that kind of stuff, and I think that's perfect. So when you're thinking about who these heroes are in these fields, how do you come across them? How do you think that, and how do you define hero?
I mean, I feel like when we start rolling on any of these things, all of a sudden people are they're like, we've got this person who's great at our company, like to find even like a cow stomach with all the valves. But then by the end of season 7, 8, 9, we got like a 747 given to us because they asked if we wanted to use it. Like slowly you get one origin story and then people start calling us and saying, we know this person, they have a great backstory, they've got an interesting job, like profile them. So it's I don't know, proof of concept, and people are jumping on board. I'm speaking at all sorts of conferences in the next year and finding I'm looking for good stories.
That's so cool. And also, so and like I said, so when you have once again these heroes, right? I noticed. I mean, there are definitely heroes from a very diverse background as well. How important is it for the students to see themselves in the people who are talking about what they do?
I mean, of course, we are really about see it, be it. And it's really important to us to have a wide range of very skilled hosts. And so we're trying to create a space where you do see people like you.
So, for once again, for as teachers and also ones who also have connection, you know, to the administrators as well, how can we help you, and how can we take part in this Explorer Media?
Well, go check it out. I it's EXPLR and then home.com if you just want to see what we've got. Check out the catalog. And if you can, bring it to your school board, bring it to your school, see if they really want to do this, or you as an individual. I've given this subscription to lots of different teachers just to be like, as a gift. I would say this is a really great supply chain non-issue gift to give for Christmas. Is a subscription because it'll be great for your grandkid if you want to give them some wholesome entertainment that's cool, or it's better than an apple for your teacher, yo.
You know, I really like just how excited you are about that. I mean, it really sounds like you're, you know, you're so invested into this and you're so excited about this. And I think it shows. And I think from what I've seen of some of the content, I think it shows in the content as well. I think that's the most important thing, because I think kids know when they're being bullshitted. You know what I'm saying? Like I think kids are know like,
Oh,
oh,
agree.
you know, that this is they don't give a shit. It's a money making, or the teacher doesn't give a shit about what they're showing. I think kids can tell that quicker than any adult can, I think.
Well, all the projects I'm involved in, and all the advice I give hosts or people trying to make shows, I'm like, okay, you're trying to make something for a 12-year-old, explain it to them like they're 35 because they're way more sophisticated than you know. If you're trying to explain something to a 35-year-old, explain it like they're 12 because you don't want to like make them feel bad if they don't understand what you're saying. And that's usually a really great rule of thumb for any entertainment.
I didn't even think about that. That's actually ingenious. You know, so talk, especially the one about the adult, talk to the older people as if they're younger because they don't want to look stupid. They don't understand it. I never even thought about that, but that's actually really, really bright. So, what can our listeners look forward to next from you and EXPLR Media?
Ooh, EXPLR Media is just there's a constant glut of new shows that are coming up. I believe that Everyday Science will be on the platform starting in January. That's when it's launching. I've been looking at a lot of rough ups today, so I'm extra excited about it. But yeah, we are cooking right along. And then for me personally, um, there may be talks for Crash Test 2. I'm just saying.
Good.
I have 3 shots in me right now. I'm ready to go. Okay. The world's starting to open up. we're starting to get a little traction on getting back into it. So, you know, we're doing our best.
Well, that's great because, like I said, I really enjoyed the crash test word, and I was like, oh man, COVID is unfortunately there's COVID that messed things up too. But I'm glad to see the second season, and obviously it's also available now on Discovery Plus on Amazon. For our listeners, if you want to find Crash Test World right now, go to Amazon, which you probably already have, Amazon Prime, but then look for Discovery Plus. It's there. Definitely watch it. And Ms. Byron, thank you so much for coming back on the show. You are fantastic, and I really can't stress how important I think it is for what you're doing for schools right now in science.
Well, do me a favor, send my people your address. I'll send you a bunch of stickers for your kids.
That I will totally do that. I will totally send that over. So
thank you, sir. It was awesome seeing you again. And you know what? The next
well.
time we have a big release of something cool, I'll come on back.
I greatly appreciate that, and have a fantastic night. And once again, I'll talk to my admin and keep going on that. Thank you so much.
Bye.